boy is back, 'cause you know he's the white boy.
Okay, let's get the tedious shit out of the way first, shall we? Yes, I'm white. I'm British. I probably sound middle class to you, but I'm not really. I've been poor, I've been better off, been all over the place. If you think any of these things have any real bearing on anything I'm about to say, then fuck off. Content matters. That's what this whole fucking situation should tell us. That's the thing that matters. Okay? Facts, content, what people are saying, not who they are. Fuck your identity politics. There's been two main arguments I've been getting into with people around the whole Black Lives Matter shebang, which obviously has picked up even more since the assassinations. Firstly, the semantics of it. I'm a writer, obviously I regard semantics as important. If you don't have a common understanding and meaning of language, then you can't communicate. And the second argument I keep having with people is over the root causes, and how if you want to actually fix what the problem is, then you need to address the actual problem, not the symptoms. So let's talk about the semantics. In the little opening card, right, I said you've got the message you're trying to transmit, okay, that the medium it travels through, the perception of the person receiving it, and then that's the message that they receive. Now, for most of these reasons, Black Lives Matter is a terrible, terrible message. Okay, you're trying to communicate we matter as well, or we matter as much, but the way in which it comes across to people, part of that is the medium. You know, Twitter hashtags, you want to keep them relatively short, so there's not a lot of room. You can't say Black Lives Matter 2 because 140 characters doesn't give you a lot of real estate to play around with. Okay, so you're trying to say that. The medium corrupts that message. It's received by people as only Black Lives Matter. Or the implication is that you do not think that our lives matter. You know? So it either comes across as I'm better than you, I'm worth more when it's received by people, or it comes across as you're judging us, you're saying that we're not worth as much as you are, which obviously gets people's backs up because nobody likes that kind of accusation, and that makes them defensive and resistant to the message that's being put across. So basically that's a terrible, terrible message. Now, in contrast to that, you have All Lives Matter, which is being dismissed as racist, co-opted by racists, but All Lives Matter is actually an egalitarian message. You know, it expresses the idea that all lives should matter to an equal extent. If that had been the hashtag that what is now Black Lives Matter had gone with, I think they would have had a much more positive reaction. So they're trying to say that everybody matters. It's inclusive. It has egalitarian language. It's literally saying everyone matters, and the implicit message along with that is us too. You know, we deserve what you have. It's not inherently confrontational. It's a way of bringing people together. It's a much better message. It's not exclusionary. It's not racist. And this kind of reaction to that is bad. I mean, this is the kind of sentiment that we should be celebrating and elevating and bringing up. You know, that's a positive message. That's a good one. Okay, but then going back to what we said, you know, that's the message that a lot of the All Lives Matter people are trying to convey, is that everybody matters. You too. Let's you know, work together. Let's ignore the racist co-ops for the moment. The medium doesn't change that much. I mean, the actual message is pretty clear there, even reduced to a Twitter hashtag. So what's going wrong there? Well, that's the perception. You know, that's where it goes wrong, because certain people are seeing that as being erasure, because we've become so fixated on this kind of the idea of identity politics. You know, we want special treatment. We want us to be seen as our identity. There's this reaction to it, but there's this generational gap and various other issues that mean that the kinds of people that promote All Lives Matter do not understand that. And on the other side of the equation, people promoting Black Lives Matter don't understand why people react with such hostility to that idea. So it's at the perception level that both fail, but All Lives Matter fails less than Black Lives Matter because it's not corrupted as much, and it's a much broader, more appealing message. I personally think they should co-opt that and make that the message. That would be far more hopeful, far more inclusive, far more egalitarian. And if you adopted it and took it on, you could, through sheer weight of numbers and empathy and people wanting, peace and love and flowers and rainbows, you could take that over and away from the racists. But what do I know? I just use words for a living. So that basically is the problem. I'll get a bit more into the perception when we talk about the root causes and why this difference in perception exists. Jeff Holiday already did a great video on this, which I'll link down below, but I'm just going to reiterate it a bit. I think I have some different perspectives and ideas on this that are probably worthwhile. Okay, assigning everything to racism is really easy. Okay, it will give you that sense of moral indignation and outrage. It lets you paint the other guy as the bad guy. It's simple, it's easy. Racism isn't something most people, the vast overwhelming majority of people will tolerate, okay? But that's not what is actually really going on. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't any racism, that there aren't any racist police officers, that there aren't any racist problems in police departments and so on. But the root cause is poverty. And this is part of the reason for the lack of communication between the various parties. It is well known that the single most important factor in criminality, social unrest, social problems and so on is poverty and the lack of social investment. Because when people are desperate, they do desperate things. So when people are poor, they are more likely to abuse substances, they're more likely to be criminal, more likely to be hopeless, mental issues, so on, so forth. So that is the underlying problem. What you have is a class/wealth issue dressed up in racism's clothing. And you have this great big history of civil rights movements and genuine racism and slavery and everything else that makes it really, really easy to point the finger at racism. But that's to miss what's going on. And it's also what really prevents anything being done about it. What you need, as this has become my tagline with this whole conversation, is you need class consciousness, not race consciousness. Deaths from, for example, random stops, they're about equal across the population, so between the various demographics. So you have about the same number of black people get shot as white people get shot, as Hispanics/other get shot. So the deaths are equally spaced between ethnic groups. But poverty is not. If you're black or Hispanic, you're about twice as likely to be poor as a white person. If you're black, you are, I can't remember the exact figures, but you're much more likely to be criminal because of that poverty. There's other factors like culture and so on as well. And you're also a visible minority. So you're visibly tagged with what things that make people think of poverty and crime and so on because of style, dress, and so on. Now this is much more apparent outside the US. If you go to a more racially homogenous society like mine, what gets people thrown out of shopping centres, followed by police, eyeballed by security guards, isn't so much race as the way you dress. And there's a lot of ingrained prejudice based upon accent. So if you have an accent like mine, which is kind of home counties estuary English, you do okay, because that's the kind of middle class accent, the London accent. That's why it's called estuary English, it's kind of out from London. Whereas, if you have a regional accent, like Liverpool or somewhere else, okay, that's assumed to be a kind of symbol of poverty, a lack of education, and so on. And so you get the same kinds of prejudice that you might get for race in the States, and the same thing with, you know, names and so on. So I think the UK provides an interesting kind of counterexample of how you get the same prejudice for different things, and what's the commonality between the two: actual or presumed poverty. The prejudice at work here is the prejudice against the poor, because the poor are more likely to be criminal. And in the States, that level of classism is even worse, because you are so far to the right and you have this kind of bootstraps mentality that if someone's poor, it's their fault. And this is just made worse by the fact that communities that are persons of colour are much more likely to have immigrants who are starting from nothing, and historically they're going to have been poorer. And America has one of the worst records for, you know, social advancement, for people building themselves up out of poverty. Even though that's the kind of the American dream, or whatever you want to call it, America has one of the most stagnant wealth/class systems in the Western world. So for people, there's often no way up out of that. Now that is the issue, and that's also why you get people objecting to Black Lives Matter, because a poor white guy has mostly the same experiences as a poor black guy. You know, he is not regarded well, he finds it hard to find a job, he's got, you know, less opportunities. So when you start whining about the same situation that he sees himself in, he has no sympathy for you. Because to him, your experience is nothing special. It's his experience. And it's like, well, the same thing's happening to me. Why are you getting all the attention? Why are you getting the special help? Why are you getting the investment? Why are there special scholarships for you? What about me? So he's got no sympathy for you because he's in the exact same situation but can't get any traction on it. So that's a large part of why you've got this disparity, and why so much of the support for Black Lives Matter comes from middle-class white kids who don't know that experience, don't know that hardship, so they can look at it and they can assume racism, whereas the guys who are actually living in a similar situation know that that's not what it is. And in the same problem that we've had over here with Brexit and so on, the lower classes, the underclasses, end up fighting each other over the scraps rather than coming together to fight for what would actually help. And what would actually help is social investment, is spending money in these communities, is lifting everyone up out of poverty. And you don't need to do that by race. Make it means tested, because that way it's fair, and that way it helps poor whites, poor Hispanics, poor everybody, poor blacks, poor everybody. It lifts everyone up without discrimination, without creating additional, fighting between people, without creating more animosity. So that's what you have to do. I don't expect America to become remotely socialist in any way, because these ideas are so utterly entrenched. But if you go look at Jeff's video, he's got some other ideas of how you can work within the American system to make things better. Philanthropy, hard work, all the rest of it. Investing in education. Now that is a major thing. I just want to briefly touch on that. Black women are lifting themselves up and out via education. Black men are not participating in the education system and lifting themselves out in the same way. And that's also becoming true of men across society and across the Western world. Women are entering education in much higher numbers, completing education in much higher numbers. Men aren't taking advantage of that, and that's unfortunate, and it's particularly stark in the American black community. So that's something where we could all really kind of pull together there. But we, like I said, don't make it about race, make it about class, make it about money, make it means tested. Because persons of colour are disproportionately poor, they will get proportionally more help in that way. But it won't be biased, it won't be prejudiced, it won't set people off. So, let's recap. Black Lives Matter is a terrible message. All Lives Matter is a brilliant message, but both sides don't understand each other's perception. And if you really want to help, if you really want to put an end to these problems, then the only thing that is actually going to work is to address the actual problems. And the actual problem is the economy, stupid. So, had to get that off my chest. Peace.